Welcome to the Real Paranormal Stories podcast with your host, Christopher Buckner. Send your stories to realparanormalstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Royalty-free music provided by Kevin MacLeod and Tabletop Audio. And now, let's take a trip into the paranormal. This story comes from Reddit user MacaronUnlucky5732. And this is their story. Okay, so this is a true event that happened to me when I was a kid. I was about 9 years old at the time. So I was home alone one night. My mom took my older sister to dance and she liked to stay there and chat with the other moms. No big deal. My mom was honestly a 7-minute drive away from me, and my great uncle is my neighbor. I've been home alone plenty of times as a kid, but this night was different. Okay, off to the story. I was sitting in the kitchen area doing vocabulary homework and studying because I had a test the next day. All of a sudden, I heard high-heel footsteps upstairs above the living room. My mom's room is above, and all the bedrooms have wooden floors and walls are thin. At first, I thought my mom came back, and I was confused because I didn't hear her come back. I quietly walked across the house to get to the stairs, and I crawled my way up slowly because there could have been a chance that wasn't my mom. Once I got to the top, I slowly peeked my head only to find silence and darkness within all the rooms upstairs. I was fucking alone. My eyes widened, the hairs on my back raised, and I immediately zoomed down the stairs as fast as I could. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the house phone and dialed my mom's cell. The moment she answered, I immediately started crying, telling her the whole story. My mom told me to ignore it, that it was probably mice in the walls. To give a little backstory, my mom is like those typical parents in horror films that think the child has a wild imagination, or chooses to ignore it to not creep the child out even more and tell them what they're experiencing is nothing. The footsteps happened again, and I remember trying really hard to pay attention to it because I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy and overthinking it. The footsteps were so familiar. Sounded just like my mom's footsteps. Walking across the room and taking sudden pauses and walking again and again. Sounded like someone was in a rush to get ready. Just like how my mom sounds when she would get ready to go out. I was terrified, but I had no other choice but to listen. This wasn't even the worst part. I was sitting on the couch studying when all of a sudden I hear my dog on the other side of the wall making a snoring, choking noise. To give a little context, behind the TV wall is the formal living room and the ceiling is very high there, so that area of the home echoes. When I heard my dog making the snoring noise, I didn't think much of it but to call out to him. I yelled, "Benji! Benji!" I found it kind of strange he didn't come to me. But as soon as I turned my head to look outside, I saw my dog staring at me, faintly crying to come back in. That noise on the other side of that wall was not my dog. Something snored and echoed throughout my entire home. When I tell you my soul dropped, it dropped. At this point, I did what any sane, logical child would do. I put on SpongeBob on max volume. And that is their story. This story comes from Reddit user AutumnRainfall1432. And this is their story. I saw a ghost at my sister's pool party. First off, I didn't see it in the pool. It was afterwards. After my sister accidentally kicked my eye in the pool, I decided to pull a prank on her and pretend she gave me a bruised eye. So, I grabbed my mother's makeup palette and did the best I could to fake a black eye. And it seemed believable. I walked up to her upstairs loft where my sister and her friends were hanging out, and I showed her my eye, and she obviously freaked out. I made her apologize before she wiped my eye and realized it was makeup. She punched me, and we had a laugh. I went downstairs to the bathroom to wash it off. As I was bent over to wash my eye, in my peripheral vision I saw a small, frail boy, wearing a striped shirt and boarding shorts. He had a bowl cut and was glaring at me with distorted facial features. Knowing there were no children as young as he looked at this party, I immediately stood up straight and looked towards him. He was gone. I backed up into the corner of the bathroom and looked around the room, my heart coming out of my ass. I ran out of the room and told my sister as she helped get the rest off my eye. After a few months had passed, I had completely forgot about that event, and so had my sister. One evening, I went into my parents' room to collect a shirt I had left in there from the previous night. My parents' room and the bathroom are connected by a pair of double doors with frosted glass, just like most of the doors in our house. I found my shirt and was on my way out when I noticed two small handprints on one of the frosted glass panes. I stopped myself to have a better look at it. Each handprint was as small as the palms of my hands. I felt shocked, but then I got shivers on every inch of my body as I remembered what happened after the pool party not too long ago. My heart sank, and I ran to the kitchen, grabbing some cleaning supplies, and desperately tried wiping it off. But because it was frosted glass, it didn't come off at all, and somewhat made it clearer. I decided to ignore it, and it's currently still there. It creeps me out whenever I go into my parents' room, or especially the bathroom. And that is the end of their story. That's all for this episode of the Real Paranormal Stories podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a review anywhere this podcast can be found.